Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about PulseX's native token, PLSX, and more specifically, its ratio versus PulseChain's native token, PLS. Now, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We just crossed 12.1K. Give the video a like if you enjoy the type of content, and check out Cypress.io, my newest web development agency, to help you build your dream site very quickly and very beautifully, such as my newest launch, which is lightbeam.xyz, a PulseChain block explorer. So let's get into the video and start talking about PLSX, and more specifically, its ratio versus PLS. Now, the reason to look at ratios that are not against their USD value, such as an ETH BTC instead of an ETH USD, and so on, is based on what you value your portfolio in. So some people deterministically believe that Bitcoin in the long run will just simply continue going up, and therefore their goal is to stack as much BTC as possible. Some hold a similar conviction for other coins such as ETH or PLS. I know a lot of members in the PulseChain community like to value their portfolio in PLS. They just stack PLS over time because they have a conviction that that's going to be the best store of value for them. So again, whatever you choose to value your portfolio in immediately assumes that fundamental aspect of it, right? So in our case, we are assuming that PLS will be the store of value, and therefore we will look at PLSX versus PLS. And you can also do this versus Ethereum, and I'll show you that as well. However, let's focus on this for this video. So as you can see, for the past, ever since September of 2023, so nearly 2 years, we have seen the PLSX to PLS ratio just continue to go up, a steady, continuous uptrend. And what can we analyze on this chart? Well, one of the things that immediately stands out to me is this uptrend right here that started around here, where these lows seem to be higher lows on a trend line. Similar with these highs, with some deviations, of course, we seem to have higher highs, also roughly along a trend line. So what I like to do on this chart is I like to grab a parallel channel and connect, let's get our magnet tool, connect the highs, right? Most of the highs. So that's pretty good right there, with obviously some exceptions. And then we connect the lows, obviously with some exceptions. We can even tilt this one a little bit up, tilt it a little bit down, and just try to get it to fit your lows and your highs as best as possible. So I think this is a really, really good fit, because as you can tell, our highs touch the upper part of this parallel channel uptrend, and our lows touch the lower end of it, right? And not just once, not just twice, but multiple times, adding to the validity of said parallel channel. And so you could continue doing this many times, and as you can tell, pretty much every single time, with the exception of a few. For example, this one, when we ran up to 1, and we'll talk about that one a little more because that's actually a really important psychological level. So that's sort of an exception. But even the most recent high touched the trend line. So let's talk about the psychological level a bit. This date right here, February 28th of 2025, was when Judge Amon actually made her decision that Richard Hart defeated the SEC. And PLSX, it's no secret that it is more volatile than PLS. When PLS goes up, PLSX more often than not runs harder than PLS. When PLS goes down, PLSX dips harder than PLS. More often than not. There are obviously situations where that didn't happen. However, for the most part, let's just look at today, for example. Let's see if I'm right for today. There you go. PLS down 6% and PLSX down almost 7%. So it's slightly more volatile. It's almost leverage on PLS, if you want to look at it that way. And what was I getting at with that? Oh, yeah. So when Richard Hart won his SEC case, people assume things are going to start going up. And then again, it's no secret that PLSX usually goes up harder than PLS when PLS does go up. So when there is bullish news, it's not surprising to see the PLSX to PLS ratio go up, which is what happened here. And it was such an important, significant day and moment for the Pulsion community that they've been waiting for since the lawsuit, so nearly 2 years, roughly early August of 2023. So it was a big deal. And we reached this psychological level of 1 parity, right? Which marks a 4x from this bottom here. And while we're on psychological levels, I want to note that this 1 level wasn't the only psychological level that we reached. We've reached many psychological levels in the past, more specifically this ratio, right? Down here at 0.25 was a time where 1 PLS unit would buy you 4 PLSX units. And then, right, where do we top out here? At 3-to-1, where 1 PLS unit would buy you 3 PLSX units. So again, these very round numbers are very important for the psychology of markets. 4-to-1, 3-to-1, back to 4-to-1, double bottom. And where do we top out here? At roughly 2-to-1, right? 0.5 again. Then we go down to 0.4, up to 0.6, and then we pretty much just stair stepped, right? So 0.5, 0.4, up to 0.6, down back to 0.5, up to 0.7, back down to 0.6, up to 0.8 or so. And then we had our psychological break here at 1. Then where do we bottom off at roughly 0.75. So again, that 3/4, very clean number. Where do we top out? Almost 1 again, but it was the top of this trend line. So this was more of a trend line resistance than it was a psychological resistance, because we didn't actually make it to the 1 level, right? And I saw a post on X the other day. Funny, because I was already thinking about making this video, and someone was wondering, they said, what if this is the top? What if this is the top for PLSX versus PLS? Now, I'm not one to tell you what's going to happen. I'm not in the market making predictions. I'm simply in the business of showing you patterns that I've recognized in the history of a chart and making reasonable, educated guesses as to what could happen next, while obviously maintaining my bets hedged and according to my own risk profile, as you should too. These are very important fundamentals to investing. Again, this is not financial advice, not a financial advisor, and everything I say is for entertainment purposes only, full disclaimer. So not only did we find support and resistance along this trend line, but there's a key moving average that is really interesting to look at, because it actually coincides really nicely with our parallel channel uptrend. And that moving average, my friends, would be the 150-day moving average. So if I hide everything, my drawings, you can tell that that has held similarly to, this lower bound of this parallel channel. Similar to that, this moving average has held as support many, many times. Not once, not twice, not even just 3 times, but 4, 5, you can count soon if you want, 6, 7, 8, 9. So if you've been in the business of multiplying your PLS bag using PLSX as a vehicle for the last 1.5 years or so, your downside risk could have been reasonably defined as this orange curve, right? Meaning you simply sell at the top of that parallel channel uptrend, which I erased, excuse me for that, but let's make another rough version of it. You sell at the top of that, buy back at the bottom. Sell at the top, buy back at the bottom. And you could have done this a multitude of times. Could have, right? Could have, should have, would have. I just find it very interesting that this is held for so long. And there's something I learned by being in crypto for nearly 8 years at this point, which is never fade a trend. You don't want to fade a trend because you don't know when it will come to an end. That rhymed. You simply don't know, right? Will this trend continue on in perpetuity forever? Probably not, right? There's obviously a case to be made where PLSX just keeps outperforming PLS forever, but reasonably speaking, if you're being reasonable, there could come a time where this trend, this uptrend actually breaks, right? And which lows do we need to protect for now to keep this uptrend intact? Roughly 0.76 from here. And if you're, considering this as a low, you could say 0.78. So we want to stay above 0.8 or so. And then where is this orange curve right now? Is at about 0.805, almost 0.81, slowly creeping up. So that level, those levels, 0.75 to 0.81 or 0.76 to 0.81 would be a reasonable area to buy if you are bullish on the continuation of this trend. If it were to go there, right? It would be this sort of box right here. And let me bring it up to the orange curve. And again, coins can often go way higher than you think, way lower than you think. So this is not a hard level of support that, you know, is 100% going to hold if we were to go back down there. But I would consider it a strong level of support. And if the time came that we were to go down beneath that box and actually break our uptrend on the lows, let me get a little brush here, then I would assume if we were to go below it, right, and break our uptrend, that it would hold resistance, right? And that's pretty much at any point, right? Like we could continue going higher. We could come back down here, bounce, make new highs, break our psychological level of 1, keep going. But if we did that, obviously our orange curve would also continue to grow. And what I'm saying is whenever it does break, I'm not saying it has to break now, right? This time around, it could take a while. But whenever it does break, I would assume that orange curve would be some level of resistance. I hope this is making sense. I hope this isn't, you know, I'm gonna make these orange to make it clear. All right. If we were to go down beneath it, whenever we do, I would assume it would be resistance. So again, I just find it very interesting that price has respected, or this ratio has respected, not only this parallel channel very cleanly, almost textbook, for the last year and a half, but it's also respected this 150-day moving average very, very well as well. Another interesting one to look at, because if you notice, there have been some wicks beneath it, right? No candle closes, but this right here wicked to it, this wicked to it. Down here we wicked beneath it, and over here we had, I think, one candle body not fully closed beneath it, right? It opened slightly above it, closed beneath it, but the next candle was a nice God candle from 0.6 to 0.7 just all in one day. If we look at the 200-day moving average, that one is also quite interesting. Because as you can tell, we weren't even touching our 200-day moving average, this red curve, back here, right? We wicked, it was still above it. We wicked here to orange, it was still above it. But back here, we wicked to it roughly twice. So, you know, if we do break orange, whenever we do, you know, if it's soon, then this red curve could also act as support, which interestingly enough is already above this wick. So technically the uptrend would still be intact. And some might argue that the uptrend is intact as long as we maintain support on this parallel channel uptrend, which again is also around the 0.77 level. So those levels like 0.76 to 0.81-ish are very important, and I assume would hold as support, right? Even if we were to break down, I think it would be support, and then we would break down, and then it would hold as resistance. Again, if we were to break down, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm actually quite bullish on this uptrend because it is simply not stopped, right? I think it's not wise to fade a trend such as Bitcoin dominance. People have been calling the top on Bitcoin dominance for years, and it's just kept going up steadily, right? And one way to look at that, to look at trends that just continue going on, a good way to look at that is a monthly chart and then changing your candles to Heikin Ashi. So as you can tell, PulseX PLS ratio on the Heikin Ashi chart, it's just been straight green. We haven't even had one single red candle on the Heikin Ashi chart monthly time frame for PLSX PLS ratio since December of 2023. So a year and a half, just straight up. This is a good way to this is a good way to visualize a trend, you know, in its general fashion. So, you know, back to our daily chart. Again, it's just been a textbook uptrend, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. This is, again, the PLSX PLS ratio. If you value your portfolio in PLS terms, you could also, and I might make a whole other video focusing specifically on this, you can also look at the PLSX to ETH ratio. This one's also quite fascinating because some people like to value their portfolio in ETH, right? So let me hide some drawings here. And again, as you can tell, the RSI is a little wonky here. So sometimes I like to look at the 3-day, which cleans it up a bit. But this also tells a story. It tells a different story. And the story that this tells, in my opinion, I'll probably hide some drawings. Let me get rid of this Fibonacci real quick. Let me get rid of this moving average. So the story this tells is also an uptrend. Not ever since September of 2023, though. Right? Because that low was around 8 zeros and a 5. All right, which is a very important low, by the way. But ever since we reached those lows in, summer of last year, summer of 2024, we've been in an uptrend, and we've respected it, this parallel channel uptrend. So PLSX really seems to like these parallel channel uptrends, whether it's on its PLS ratio or its ETH ratio. As you can tell, we touched it 1, 2, 3 times. We came back up to the mid level, came back down to the lower bound, and then we hit the upper bound, back down in the mid level. So the mid level also seems to act as support or resistance, right? Back up here, back down there, back up here, mid level resistance or support, upper bound resistance, lower bound support, upper bound resistance, and so on. So right now is a little different, funny enough, right? We came to the mid level, came back a little above it, now we're a little below it. So something like this, I can't really see anything that's done anything similar other than maybe this right here, which would imply we'd go back down to the lower bound. Or if you look at, yeah, that's pretty much the only situation. And even that's not that similar because it was just a candle up, candle down. You didn't really have any candles close above that mid level, versus over here we did have one green candle close above that mid level. So this one's a little tricky to analyze exactly what's going to happen in the short term. However, I think in the mid to long term, it's wise to look at these levels as possible support, right? 7 zeros and a 1, and we're at about 1.3 right now, which would be about a 20% dip. And your upside potential could be about a double, roughly about the 2.4 level, and we're about 1.3, so roughly a double. Right? So I think that's a good risk to reward ratio personally on PLSX versus ETH, because your downside risk is 20 to 25%, yet your upside potential is a double. So that is what is that, like a risk to reward ratio of like 8, and I'm pretty sure traders like to do anything above 2 or 3. Anyways, I digress. I find this to be a very interesting chart. I also think it's interesting that these highs are important, right? About this 2.4 level or so, because we reached it here with some candles, and then we reached it over here with a wick, and funnily enough, it corresponds to the top of this uptrend parallel channel at some point in June or July, or even going into August, because you can extend this out to forever, and so on. So we have some clearly defined lows, some range lows, some clearly defined range highs, and you could go as high as this 3 level, but this was upon launch, so that's a little trickier to analyze, right? Launch prices very volatile, markets are calibrating and whatnot, but yeah, there are many ways you can look at the PLSX chart. Most people are used to simply looking at this USD chart of it, which is also a good one to look at if you value your portfolio in USD, but it doesn't really tell you the full story of whether it's outperforming other things you could be holding, such as PLS or Ethereum or even Bitcoin. However, the USD chart has been forming this massive triangle ever since launch, where we have our our range highs on this downtrend line and our range lows on this upward sloping trend line. And I mean, it's tightening up, you guys. It's anyone's guess whether this breaks to the upside or to the downside. We can obviously have fake outs like we did over here. Some nice fake outs where we we actually close entire candles beneath this level. But that, in retrospect, was a great buying opportunity, right? You could have doubled or tripled your USD in this run over the course of just a couple months. So it's anyone's guess, right, where this is going to break. But again, I would assume this would be resistance. If we hit it, I would assume this level would be support if we hit it on the USD pair. And obviously, I'd love to see something along the lines of finding support on that trend line. That would be huge, finding support on that trend line, because then that would mean we could continue going up, and hopefully we would break this downtrend that we've been in on the USD pair pretty much since launch, right? 1.3 down to, you know, about 13 or 14, down to roughly 9, roughly 6, 5, and this top was 4, right? So the highs just keep getting lower. However, the lows also keep getting higher, right? About a 0.7 and then a 0.9, and then we reach 1, 1.2, 1.3. Over here it was 1.5. This low was around 2, right? It's tightening up, you guys. It's anyone's guess whether we break to the upside or whether we break to the downside, right? And again, we can have fake outs, but if we were to lose this low, it would start looking bad, right? So the levels we want to hold as support are, in my opinion, first off, on the PLS pair, this region, right? This region is very important to hold as support, the 0.76 to 0.81 region. Very important to hold. And then if that were to happen, right, we'd want to be looking at this level on the ETH chart, PLSX ETH ratio. It's about 7 zeros and a 1. And on the USD chart, we'd want to hold these low 2s, right? 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s. And to the upside, we'd want to break, to be extremely bullish, we want to break these 4 levels, break this high truly, because then we'd have a higher high. And we haven't had that for a while, as you can tell. Lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. So to the upside, we want to break roughly 4.2, hold it as support. We want to break this trend line, this downward sloping, which is roughly around 4.2. Hold that as support. That would be very bullish. On the PLS chart, it's a little different because we could be very bullish on USD, and honestly, we could just be, you know, going flat or sideways, which is okay. But the one level, to break the one level and hold that as support would also be extremely bullish. And then on the PLSX to ETH ratio, this 7 zeros and a 2.3 level would be the level we'd want to break, hold as support to actually call it PLSX season, right? Pulse chain season, PulseX season, you know, heart season, whatever you want to call it, alt season. So yeah, that's my analysis. Just have some well-defined upper bounds, some well-defined lower bounds that, you know, would ideally hold a support or resistance, technically speaking. But if they were to break, then you could go full bear or you could go full bull. I'm in the business of being a bull. What did I say? Bears are right, bulls make money. So that's the video, you guys. I just thought it was really interesting to look at PLSX from multiple lenses, right? Whether it's USD pair, its PLS pair, or its ETH pair. This video was supposed to mainly be focused on its PLS pair, but you can't really talk about one of these without bringing up the others. So that's the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 12.2K. Leave a like if you like this kind of content. Let me know in the comments which coin, which ratio you'd like to see me analyze next. And also check out Cypherus.io. Link in the description below. Let me help you build your dream website, whether it's a dashboard, a whole block explorer, a simple portfolio page, whatever you need. Cypherus.io can help. Latest thing we built, or I've built myself, is Lightbeam.xyz, a pulse chain block explorer. So again, thank you guys for watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.